Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for attending this session. And today is really talking about career conversation for managers. Today's session is going to be interesting because we don't just want to talk about the theory part, but it's also to address some of the current career conversations that you guys are having in your workplace and see what are some of the gaps that we can work on. So let me share a bit about myself so that you have an idea where I'm coming from, as well as what have I done and my contribution to this particular session. I work a lot in the area of leadership development, especially with new managers, emerging leaders. The way I run my programs are what we call behavioral based. So behavioral based is slightly different from motivational approach in the sense that we focus very much at the skill level. We focus a lot more in terms of the how to. That's one. The other thing which I am strong at is working in the what we call the Asian culture. And it's very interesting. If you think about it, a lot of our organizational structures, organizational design, working approach is very much Western-based approach because organizational structure started from the Industrial Revolution with Henry Ford and all. So a lot of things that happens over here, we talk about good to have, but the challenge is how do we implement? And what I've noticed is there's a shift in trend of employees, and therefore career conversation has become very crucial. What I think you will find interesting in today's session is the way I'll be presenting career conversation may be quite different to some of how you guys are currently doing career conversation, if you are doing. And this is an opportunity for you to either evaluate, assess, and see whether what I'm sharing makes sense for your organization. Now, we are having a 2-hour session, and this 2-hour session, there's 4 key objectives that I want to get across. The first is to recognize the needs of employees today. I notice a lot of you are HR and L&D professional, and therefore, I think we're going to have more of a conversation at this part about understanding the needs of employees, and perhaps to kind of succinct and give a framework on understanding them. That's one. Second, recognize the importance of a meaningful conversation. So there are many conversations that we practice in the workplace. Crucial conversations, coaching conversation, feedback, performance appraisal conversation. There are many conversations. The question is, are they meaningful? And that becomes a centerpiece of today's career conversation. Then I'm going to share some basic tips in terms of structure, when to do, how to do, what something that you need to consider when you're doing it. And this is really to be able to come up with a productive conversation. And finally, how do you engage confidently? Because ultimately, we talk about communication and how the body language affects the person we're dealing with. How do we do that? I'm breaking this session, this 2-hour session, into 3 areas. The reality of employees today, and this really talks about the needs of the employees, and it is very important. I'm going to spend a fair bit of time on the reality of employees today. As I was sharing earlier on with one of the learners, one of the challenging thing about a conversation model is that it looks quite the same with every other model. And therefore, sometimes when we present it to a manager or we present it to someone who needs to use it, they some of them get jaded and say like, this is just like the other one, this is just like a coaching conversation. So the impact and the value of the career conversation drops. And when, like in any tool, if you don't use it correctly, if you don't optimize the usage of it, the effectiveness drops. So I'm going to spend a fair bit on time on the reality of employees today. Then the next part, I'm going to talk about meaningful engagement with the employees. We all will recognize that employee engagement is one of the most talked about today in the area of human resource, people development, organizational development. And we're going to talk about how do we make it meaningful. So we're going to talk about some of the disconnect with organizations, between organization and employee, because that's critical, right? We always say people are asset, but question is, how do we treat them as such that they do feel like an asset, and they are disconnected on that. Then we're going to talk about the revised role of a people manager. What are some of the things from the traditional Mintzberg time till now? What are some of the changes in the role of people managers? And then the value of career conversation. So, and this whole idea is to build the why, the behind it, and why this should be the focus for any managers in the workplace today. In fact, I personally believe this is perhaps one of the most critical conversation any effective managers need to be able to master in today's context for today's generation. And the last part, career conversation, that's why I'm going to go to show you step by step, as well as managing some of the difficult questions you get in this conversation, right? So that's what I'm going to bring us through in this journey. My intention is for this conversation to be practical. I like to work with practical situations, not just talking theories. From my experience, creating a learning conducive space becomes very, very critical to any of these initiatives. Here are some of the ground rules. So that's the thing with the learning contracts for us. Let's do this. If you have a phone, can I get you to, and I would like to do this because it helps us to understand each other better. Great. So these are the things that we find to motivate, right? And if you look at a lot of your responses, things like respect, things like, understand how you fit to the purpose and all, you will start to realize there is a shift from, especially at the employees level, from an external motivation, which is reward, carrot and stick, to a internal motivation. That means, how does it make me feel? Do I feel respected? Do I feel recognized? Um, the rewards, are the rewards meaningful to me? Have you been in a situation where your boss says, "Hey, you got promotion," but for some reason that promotion, that the excitement of it isn't as high as what you thought it is, right? And so these are the things that we talk about it. So looking at what you have just shared, and so looking at what you just shared in terms of what employees look for when they come to work, and what is going on today in the workplace, where organizations are still focusing a lot more with external motivation. So what do I mean by external motivation? Career ladder, performance-based incentives, the holiday trips. So a lot of things are still very much. So what are the implications of what the employees want to the workplace today? Who would like to start us off first?
Because like myself, right, I like to do a lot of new experiments. So that's why I still remember there's one conversation with my manager. I says that I would like to give an opportunity to try a new thing because I need a platform to do some experiments so that I can understand whether the idea that I propose, is it workable or not to the organization. So sometimes I think empowerment is important to certain people, even because people wants to share their ideas, wants to try out their ideas, but if the manager doesn't allow any platform for them to do, it quite difficult also. But we also never give a chance for the staff to try,
Right.
and probably can implement for the organization as well.
Okay, cool. So how did that go? Was that something that they allowed you to experiment, or were there certain guidelines and stuff like that?
They do allow me to try an area without
Okay.
any specific SOPs or
Ah.
restrictions.
Oh, okay. So that is the kind of workplace that you would enjoy working, I take it?
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. So this is what we mean by implications of, because of the desire, the needs, and the wants of talents today, organization have to make changes. Thanks, Melvin. What are the implications? What are the things that happens in the workplace today in order to accommodate for employees today?
Isaac, for
Yes.
me, I think, as a manager, you need to listen to the employee, what they want to be, and what is their expectation to the
Okay.
organization, and what is the goal that they want to achieve. So that when you listen to them, and you will be able to empower them to make mistake or to support what other gap that they want to close in order for them to achieve their goal. For example, employee wanted to become to do extra mile in the
Yep.
specific scope or role. So you will be able to guide them and support them. Sometimes you also don't know what support that they require,
All
but
right.
when you listen to them, you will be able to, empower them. And it's also a trust issue that you put in in order for them to achieve that specific goal.
Cool. You're saying trust issue. Can you elaborate more on that? What do you mean by trust issue? Are we
Trust
not
issue,
trusting them, or?
because some of manager, they feel that they know that that particular employee able to do certain work or any project related, but then when they have a specific people in their mind, they don't trust any other employee who willing to do that specific job.
Right.
So that trust issue also contribute when you want to support another employee in your team as well. So when you listen to them and you put a trust and you feel that, okay, at least you give a chance and empower them to enable them to do this specific new project. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So when you talk about trust, there's also this thing about, they need to earn the trust, right? I mean, through credibility or through results.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Any other implication? For some of you, your organization is doing it. For some of you, your organization has not. So the whole idea of this is to bring up some best practices. For example, like I know companies who makes it easy for people to do lateral transfer, moving from one department to others. How many of your organization practice the culture where staff can move laterally to another department? Just put me. That's actually pretty powerful in today's context. Okay, Jessica, thank you. Vertical and horizontal. Oh, cool. Yes, within entity. Internal career portal, yes, great. And these are definitely great practices across BUs. I'm asking this very interestingly because I was working with one company. So it's an MNC. They have a policy, but when I was talking with their Malaysian managers and asked them about this, most of them were pretty afraid of it. They don't really recommend. But then somebody mentioned the HQ in Canada practice it. So where I'm coming from is organizations there are processes and structures that organization put in place, but sometimes the managers are not using it. So that's something that I want to just bring it up. Let me share with you some of the implications that I've seen over the years, and you see whether you agree with me. If you disagree, it's fine. There's a focus on employee experience. So it's no more just about giving a job. It's about creating an experience. So if you guys have been on LinkedIn and all, you've been seeing employees stepping in the workplace, they get a small parcel, a small pack in terms of welcome with their name tags. And so there's a greater focus on employee experience because of the shift of employees from just getting a job to now doing something that's more meaningful to them. A career path that is tailored to them. If you read articles online in terms of career conversation, one of the reason behind it because the career ladder approach is not effective anymore. As an organization, you do need a career ladder because it tells when people come in. But as an employee, a career ladder is no more the only thing that they look for. Now, more autonomy in the workplace. So just not like Melvin shares, because they come with their own ideas and they want to contribute, they want more autonomy. Now, autonomy doesn't mean hands off. There are levels of autonomy that you give to the employee. The point is they must have autonomy. They need to have space to experiment. Why? If you think about it, the younger employees coming to the workforce today are what we call knowledge-rich, experience poor, which means they never experimented with a lot of things. A lot of what they learn has been textbook learning, YouTube learning, e-learning. So the learning has always been a secondary learning, not so much as a experience. So when they go to the workplace, obviously now they want to try things out. So an autonomy for them to do things is important. And therefore, there are organizations where you do set funds and budgets for this experimentation, right? And the last one, and I thought this is a very interesting point, a career that adds value to them. So this is some of the implication that I see in the workplace. Any comments or any thoughts looking at these 4 implications I've shared?
So the different stakeholders, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, so the different stakeholders in the upper management actually have different views regarding like innovation fund. Some
Okay.
of them are very supportive to allow people to experiment, even to say like let's set up a budget.
Okay.
However, like some of the people with the financial controllers, then they will have issues with setting aside that amount that is so-called predicted loss.
Predicted. Okay, right.
No, because there is a risk, right? In any case,
Definitely.
if they are doing an experiment, there's definitely a risk. So some of them are still very risk adverse. So I cannot proceed with this kind of innovation issue.
But how do you then?
Innovation fund.
Okay, so you do have an innovation fund, but you're saying
Yeah,
some
I don't
of them
have.
are not using it.
No, I don't have because we can't proceed with it due to disputes. I mean, like it's not a shared view.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So it's very depending on who's your boss kind of thing, is it?
Correct. No, as in depend on the upper management. So some of the people within the group in the upper management, they support for it. But the people with the so-called, they need a majority support kind of thing. So even if
so it's
let's
more
say,
of a consensus
yes,
approval
so no consensus on it. So you cannot move forward with any innovation fund.
Okay.
Yeah, even though there are people that understand that it's important.
So it's a situation where you all want to implement these kind of things, but because there are certain hesitation with some of the upper management, and because decision is made as consensus, it doesn't get the go ahead.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Jessica. Just what you mentioned is an interesting thing, because one of the things that, at least the way I promote leadership and career conversation, is now, once again, it depends on the scale and size of it. Managers sometimes do need to take a bit of a risk and put their self on the line by taking risks with the staff, which means there needs to be a stronger relationship with the staff, especially for smaller projects. So that's something that I'm challenging a lot of organizations today, because the higher you go, the decision-making process is a lot more rigorous. And the tendency is to always find a try and proven method. That tends to still be what's going on. So one of the things that I do work with people and say, no, why don't, as a manager, willing to take the risk, maybe explore on something with the staff at a smaller level and create track records. So that's one way that managers today can deal with that. Thanks for sharing that, Jessica. Now, I'm sure if you have seen this particular model, most of you will say Maslow's, right? Now, there's another model that I thought fits in well, and they call it ERG model. And really, if you look at this, they talk about existence need, related need, and growth needs. And what I find with this particular model, or at least for organizations to recognize, there's a shift from what people get, which is rewards based, to how people feel, which is why today, employee engagement survey, organization climate survey, those are becoming numbers that people use. Let me ask you, a high employment engagement survey means people are happy. True or false? Put your answers in the chat box. Majority say false. Elaine says true. Let's kind of just explore the two parts of it, because obviously we all have our experiences. So Elaine, if you don't mind me starting with you, share your thoughts in terms of employee engagement.
For me, I believe that it does reflect if we have good survey data. So in terms of employee do give their feedback, if it comes back as very negative, so you generally will have a good gauge that the employee is not engaged, which means either they are not happy with the company, not happy with their manager. So it does relate back how happy they are with their job. Yeah, generally you will not give a negative or a bad response if you are so far happy or in terms of company, your growth and everything in the company. Yeah.
All right. And do you relate your data with other data like retention or promotion and stuff like that?
In terms of the result and then end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So we do look at engagement versus our retentions. And and the growth. Yes.
All right, thank you. So Elaine says it's true, and based on what she shared, and she also talked about the co-relationship between retention and employee engagement. So that's good, right? You do have a supporting that one. Now, a lot of us say false. Could you share with us why you felt it's not true?
I think employees very often they are afraid to tell the truth through the engagement survey. So they always give a untrue rating in order to reflect, to secure their job. So they are so afraid that they'll be penalized if they were found given a poor rating, even though the company actually have been telling them that your information will not be disclosed or you won't be penalized. But I do realize in reality, a lot of employees actually they never give a true rating. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for sharing that, Stephanie. Anyone else?
Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, one of the main reasons is that during the survey, although they mentioned that it is 100% strictly confidential and all those stuff, but very unlikely it is confidential. So that could be one of the reasons for fear the survey is not truly done. And even I would feel that a face-to-face kind of feedback will be more effective rather than doing it, on records.
Okay, thanks for that, Shahid. And I think what you're saying makes sense. What Elaine says also makes sense. And this is where, once again, it goes into the organization culture. Now, the reason why I mentioned this is because we are dealing in the area of people. And once again, there's a lot of emotion involved. So let me share with you one of the clients I work with. They used to do employee engagement survey and they send it to their email. So what happened was this: everybody gets a personalized email. And because it's personalized, there is that sense that if you're sending a personal email, means you're able to track. So for that year, so at least what's happening for a few years, not a lot of people actually contributed to the survey. So that 1 year he decided to try and say, okay, let's just make it broad. So he used Google Doc, and he used a generic link, and the participation rate went up. So there is that cultural, organizational culture impact on how it is being run. The reason I'm sharing this is to get us to recognize it is not so much about what we do, but it's how we are doing it, and how are we doing it in a way that employee feels comfortable. In today's context, there's this phrase called psychological safety. Are you guys familiar with the term psychological safety? Psychological safety talks a lot about there's a link with trust. So for example, if you say something to me, like you say, don't worry, just give your opinion, and you don't feel comfortable, you feel like, does he really mean it or not? Then the psychological safety is not there. Psychological safety is a place where employees are comfortable sharing their concerns, are comfortable sharing their inner thoughts, are comfortable sharing with things that others will not agree. And this is a term today used very much. In the space of OD, organizational development, we focus a lot on creating psychological safety because we recognize as long as people don't feel safe, they will play the game of giving you the right answer. Focusing on the right answer can be dangerous because it may not be the true answer. So that's what psychological safety is about. The whole idea is, do people in your organization feel that they can share their heart or they can share their mind without fear of being reprimanded? So that is psychological safety. Now, if the organization has that psychological safety, then people are more likely to share their honest opinions on the employment engagement survey. They are more likely to share about things that they don't like in the organization. They are more likely to suggest things which may be totally out of things which is totally new, out of the box. So that's where psychological safety comes in. The focus now is really, it's not about what we do, it's how we do it. So let me give you an example about this. When we talk about employees, a company may say, okay, we celebrate birthday for our staff, but there are two ways of celebrating. One is happy birthday to you, and then give a voucher. So it makes the staff feel like you guys are just going through the motion because it's on calendar. Or you could still do it, but the demeanor of how you do it, how you come across to the staff, you taking the extra 5 minutes to just sit down and talk to the staff makes a whole world of difference, because the focus now is how people feel. Right? So that is one of the things that is very, very prominent. Let me just check. How many of you go on LinkedIn at least once a day? How many of you? Just put I. So one of the things that's interesting when we talk about looking at employees' trend and all these things that I'm talking about is you observe how people respond and behave on LinkedIn. I do that a lot as a way of sense making what people are looking for. For example, in LinkedIn, you will see posts that is featuring cute stuff, post that is focusing on motivational messages gets a lot of response. Posts that focus on, highlighting a certain issues do not get that much of a response to it. Now, what does this tell us? It talks us about people gravitate towards what's nice, what is pleasant, right? Why? Because the experience or the emotion makes them feel good. Now, a way to explain this is in the area of neuroscience. The way the brain works, there's this thing, pleasure and pain. People gravitate towards pleasure and run away from pain. Currently in organizations, so psychological safety is linked to that. If the way you position it makes me find that I want to invest in you, then people will come. So this is what we talk about psychological safety. Now, how does that link to what I'm showing here right now? If you look at this, there are situations of existence needs. So that talks about the very basic physical needs, material needs, right? Then you have related needs. So related needs really is about relationship. And finally, growth needs. Now, what's interesting about this, and this helped me a lot in terms of understanding employees today, as well as how do we engage them, is that it doesn't need to happen one at a time. It doesn't mean situation like if the person is financially well, he will then go to related. No. What this model talks, and this model is more research in comparison to Maslow, is that a person could have a need at a growth level as well as an existent level, or all three, right? So what does that mean to us? So as leaders, we need to recognize just because the staff is new doesn't mean he doesn't have a growth need. He may have a growth need. If a staff is very long in the organization, it doesn't mean he wants to climb up the ladder. So there are different needs. And question as leaders today, are we aware of those needs? How many of you have read the book Drive by Daniel Pink? Hasrina, great. Yes. Who else? No. I watched the YouTube. Great, Jessica. Yeah, the YouTube summary was good, but the book is better. Sandy, no. I would say if you are in the area of people managing, Drive is one of the cornerstones that I use. So when I run my leadership development program, I get all my participants this book, Drive. So taking what we shared earlier on in terms of construct, in terms of the theory, this is really much at the application level. And someone mentioned earlier on purpose, right? So in the book Drive, it basically says, because now the shift is for internal, in order to get people to be self-driven, and that is today the word we use, in order to be self-driven, there are three factors that people are looking for: the purpose, the autonomy, and the mastery. If you look at the definition given, purpose is about the yearning to do what we do in the service of something larger than ourselves. Now, larger than ourselves can constitute a few things. It could be how far I want to climb up the organization. It could also mean I'm more interested in working with a charity organization. Recently, I have a friend who is a senior leader, and he's coming out because he wants to start a social enterprise, right? Now, he's very successful, but he wants to come out and do social enterprise, despite the fact his organization allows them to do CSR and all. So people have purpose, right? That's one. Autonomy. Now, this autonomy is the urge to direct their own lives. So this is where, if you think about autonomy, you may send people for training, but it doesn't mean that they will use that skill, because willingness is connected with autonomy. If I feel I have the choice, they will do it. But if you force me, I may purposely hold it back. And the third part, which is mastery. So mastery talks about the desire to improve. My experience working with the younger generation and the middle generation today is everybody wants to be good at something. Everybody wants to be known for something. It could be known as an encourager, which means more people kind of thing, or it could be known as a technical specialist, or for example, a person doing sales. So everybody wants to improve. Question is, are they aware of what skills they want? That's first. Secondly, do they have the autonomy to choose it? So let me give you an example. Let's say your child wants a Nintendo. You could buy it for the child and give it, or you could get the child to put in some money, work for some money, and get the Nintendo. Which one has a greater sense of satisfaction? Buying for the child or the child contribute? Which one has greater satisfaction?
The second one.
Second one.
Child contributes.
Child contributes.
Yeah.
So this is where we say, right, whenever the person feels that they have a part to play, the engagement actually goes up. Engagement goes down when they don't do anything, they just sit there, everybody do, right? So that's what's happening. And the child contributes really is a critical point. Now, taking this concept to the workplace, do we give autonomy in terms of, you want to try, just like what Melvin shared just now, you want to try, can, but this is what you do, this is what we need from you. So there is this thing, and there is the part where the staff initiates. So you start to realize when staff initiates, it's part of they felt a sense of autonomy, a sense of, I would like to try this. So this is a very critical component. And interestingly, when this is missing, people tend to work just for the paycheck. So if you look at this point, purpose, autonomy, mastery, of these three factors, which is the driver or which is the greatest lever? Purpose, autonomy, or mastery? Shai, can you share with us why you say it's purpose?
I'm trying to share based on my past corporate experience, though I'm currently on a freelance basis.
Okay.
Is that for anything that you do, or you want someone to do it, or someone wants you to do it, there must be some purpose, right?
All right.
So if there's no direction, then the so-called the velocity, we call it speed and direction, is not there, right? So to me,
Great.
I personally feel that if someone asks me to do, or I need to do something, it must be always the purpose. Then the rest of it.
Thanks for that, Shai. Jessica, you mentioned mastery. Why do you find mastery to be the greatest lever?
So mastery is more towards the individual, because regardless of the purpose and the autonomy, mastery will be the one that benefits the person most.
Benefits the person. All right. Okay, so when you say benefit the person, so when you say benefit the person means what? They gain a skill, is it? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, as in they are not thinking of like a larger purpose. In terms of mastery, they are more thinking of themselves, what they gain from it.
What they gain from it.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Jessica. All are important, but which one has the greatest lever? That means if I get this, the other two settles itself. Based on my own experience, I find the greatest purpose is purpose. So now purpose here focuses not so much about the task that is given to me. Purpose here focuses a lot is what's my purpose. So that means for me, I'm Isaac, I go to work. Before I even go to work, what's my purpose? What are the things I want to achieve? Now, purpose here doesn't just focus on your workplace. The purpose here talks about my purpose. All right. So, for example, you will have a situation where you feel that workplace is not exciting because for you it's about helping. Let's say you're helping the poor. That is your purpose. And therefore, what might be interesting in the workplace is to be involved in, say, the CSR project. That's one. Or perhaps it's just about the finances, because what you do is you get the finance in order to be able to do charity work. So this is where, and then now this is where it happens. Let me share with you a story of purpose where I met this young executive a couple of years back. I was doing a program. I was working with this young executive, and I asked him, what's your purpose of working? And his answer was, actually, I'm only looking myself here about 3 to 5 years. After that, I'm going to open my own business. So that was his response. And this guy is one of those emerging talent kind of person. So he says, I plan to open my own business in 3 to 5 years. Then I said, oh, okay. So how's work right now? He said, actually pretty exciting. I said, what do you mean? He says, while I'm in this organization, because he's with the MNC, I'm actually learning about organization structure. How should I organize my business based on what I'm learning in this company? What does that mean? So he goes on to say that because for me, it is about learning about organization structure, he gets involved in some of the extra activities because by being involved with the extracurricular or some of the other projects in the company, he gets to learn more about how the organization is designed. He makes it a point to engage his senior leaders and all. So this is what he's doing because his purpose was, in 3 to 5 years time, I'm going to go and open my own business. So that is his purpose, right? And because of that, the autonomy is he chooses where he wants to get involved. And part of it is mastery. Where can I pick up the skills? So for example, and this is very interesting. I'm not sure about you. When my final year in university, I realized engineering wasn't for me. But there was certain skills I know I could learn if I was in manufacturing. So therefore, my first 5 years of my career, I was in factory, right, in manufacturing. And the whole idea is about talking about looking at processes. How do you design process? How do you design equipment? How do you, basically the technical part of it. So I enjoyed that. But I knew engineering wasn't for me. So after about 5, 6 years, I moved on to R&D and then finally got out engineering. Now this is where, but it wasn't that clear a purpose back then. But now as a reflection, I realized there are certain things I did because I was driven by a clear purpose about people. So that was for me. So over here, if I need to focus on one area, and this is where the career conversation comes, is the focus on purpose, right? If you focus on purpose, the mastery and the autonomy takes care of itself. Let me repeat that. If you focus on your purpose, the autonomy and mastery takes care for itself. One of the challenges I see in the workplace is we tend to say, oh, if I'm not getting a promotion or not, then I may not be interested in that project. I won't do extra because I feel I should be paid for what to do. Now, nothing wrong with that. Legally, that's correct. But if your purpose is clear, I want to move on, then that's where you start having conversations with people. So let's do this. If I can get you to go back to Mentimeter again, let's do this poll. And the question that we want to focus on is this. What are some disconnects between organizations? What I've just shared just now about employees, and what are some of the disconnects with organizations today? When I say disconnect, what I mean is things that organizations are doing that people don't want, or things that people want and organizations not doing. So those are the two areas I could just quickly say about. All right, human touch. Okay, if you can elaborate more when you say human touch, that'd be great.
That's shared by me, Eileen.
Hi, Eileen.
Yeah, so basically when employee, because all of us, managers are driven on a yearly process to do review.
Yeah.
So some employee will feel very disconnected when managers do not put in a lot of effort in terms of discussing on their personal development. They talk more about organization expectation, but they do not discuss about the individual, needs and wants. So that is a little bit disconnect. So employee will feel disconnected, and they feel that managers are always just pushing for their own purpose.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So when you talk human touch, it's about the focus is on the employees, right?
Yeah. So how do they feel connected to the organization? They must have the purpose, like you mentioned before. So if they do not know what's their purpose in this organization, they will feel that there's a lack of human touch whenever they have such discussion with their manager.
Yes. Thank you very much. And then I think that summarized a lot of what we are talking with career conversation. It's really about the staff and how do we create a form of partnership. So that's really much a human touch. Thank you very much for that, Elaine. Next is more focus on organizational needs instead of employees. Are you talking about goal? Could you share more focus on organizational needs instead of employees? Who shared this?
Yeah, Rina here.
Hi, Rina. Yeah.
Hi. The reason why I put this comment because I think during career conversation, manager tend to focus on the organization needs rather than what is their inner outcome of that particular employee. Maybe their goal for at that particular period will be, for example, like what you giving just now. Her focus or her focus will be to open a new business, their own business. But when you focus on the organization, you don't want to listen towards this particular employee purpose. You want to know about what is in for you in this organization,
That's
so we tend to not listen to their own purpose, and we focus on our organizations instead. So
Okay, cool. So over here when you're talking about the manager who basically says, if what you're sharing to me is not contributing to what the organization needs, then they will just push it aside.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that. Okay, so good. Yeah. So that is one of the challenges which career conversation wants to overcome. Mechanical in performance review conversation.
Oh, that's me, Elaine. Yeah.
Hi again, Lilian.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the same concept about the human touch. So we're just trying to explain a little bit more on that. Yeah.
Thanks for the elaboration. Right. So once again, really it's about just going what we call form filling, right? To just complete the whole thing. Trying to go for the intangible. I thought this is quite interesting, and I'm trying to understand whether I understand it correctly. Who shared this? Trying to go for intangible tools.
I'm Jessica. Yeah.
Hi, Jessica. Yes. What do you mean by intangible tools?
No, like you're going for the feely goody things, right? You're trying to say like the managers should understand the staff and things. I had a conversation with one of my managers. They were giving feedback that yes, they can go ahead and listen to these people, listen to their staff, and provide as much as they can. But in terms, they also need budget to help to meet these needs. It's not like I can always do the soft kind of approach to my staff and understand that. For example, like if they say that they require training or things like that, they will also still need a very tangible budget to go and fulfill these things. And it's not just, even though the manager himself have the skill to so far have the conversation, but he feels that he doesn't have the resources to actually go ahead to implement or things like that.
So you're talking here about things that requires physical resources.
Correct. So it's not just like the first conversation you have and then you have a brainstorm and say that, it's a few good things, you want to make the people have a good experience. Yeah, then you give them some small gifts or things like that. But actually in the larger picture, are you even meeting like the market benefits? I mean the market level of benefits, yeah. That's where I'm coming from.
Okay. Jessica, thank you very much for sharing that. So part of it, what you're saying is we can talk to people, but there needs to, the support must also be there if we are saying that we want to help, we need to be able to follow through with the support, right? Okay. Empathy, disconnect. Share with us empathy and what do you mean by empathy, right?
I included empathy because it's. I feel that having empathy allows the employee to trust the organization that the managers are with them, And also, unfortunately, many organizations have turned into a machine-like system in which they are considering human as machines, and there is no emotional component in that.
Okay.
So I think empathy is very good for the organization.
Right. Okay, cool. So yeah, empathy is really about connecting the person and showing care, not just saying it, but actually showing care to them in terms of what do they need. And this is where I think there's another skill set about, when we talk about as managers, how do we plan and organize the team? Do we have an agile team where we can shift things around, or it is very specific? So that talks about how do we engage the entire team. Communication breakdown.
It's me.
Hi,
So
yes.
I think, yeah, most of the time, the organization, the management, they always has a big vision to, what are the plans to move on. But then when these plans did not clearly communicate to across the board in the organization, so employees get lost, so they are
Right.
not connected to the organization goal. Yeah.
Okay. Great. So it's about the top to the bottom, and there's the communication breakdown.
Yeah.
Okay. In my experience working manager, you're right. It's very much communication issue. That's one. Secondly, it's about a mindset issue by the middle managers in terms of, do I really see what the senior leadership says? This is really what we want, or are they just saying it because it sounds nice? So there's
Correct.
a lot of this thing that goes on, and that really is an area of mindset. How do they perceive things? Right? And also, and this is where we swing in intergenerational, right? I do multi-generational programs. If you look at how Asia started as a manufacturing hub, we started off very much as a low-cost manufacturing, and therefore there isn't a sense of pride in work. There's a lot about, we were chosen because we were the cheapest. I mean, who takes pride in that? So what happens is people do not buy into this whole vision, mission, values, because for them, work is work lah. We just need to produce, that's all. And
Yeah.
And when managers takes on that kind of mindset, and it's being shaped over the years, for them it's like, let's just do work. That is with the more seasoned. The younger generation, because of the educational system, the kind of influence we have in social media, gravitate towards the value based, like, this is my purpose, I have a dream, what we call the best practices from the Western today. So they want to engage, and therefore the newer workforce want to know the why, want to know the direction. But the middle layers kind of say, can you just focus on your work? So that's where the communication breakdowns happen. Thank you for that. The last one, psychological safety, especially certain staff who really close with the leader in the company. This creates a sentiment that other staff will not trust the leader. Are you talking about office politics? Who shared this?
Yeah, it's me. Yeah, it's kind of something like office politics lah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's believed to, due to this situation, right? Some of the staff, some of the employee, will lack of trust on the leader. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Thanks for that. I will share you the session I did last week on political savviness. And what's interesting, as leaders, you do need to be able to engage office politics ethically. So there is a way, and part of what I'm going to share later is, as leaders, you must be comfortable to connect at this level. Yes, obviously people don't feel it. The reason is why? Because once again, is the organizational culture. If you look at a lot of Western companies, connecting with certain leaders in the organization is expected because they are the power source, right? And the whole trust issue has what I call a Asian versus Western culture thing, right? I will send you a video on what I talk about political savviness that links very much to this particular point, why there's disconnect. Because a lot of us grew up with the mentality, work hard, don't get involved in office politics, and therefore you'll do well. But the problem is, we notice those who does this move up faster, and there is a rationale to that, right? So, but this is the reality of what's going on today. Anyone has any other thoughts with the disconnect before I move on? If not, can you all just type no? Then I'll move to the next section. Okay, thanks Stephanie, thanks Zarina, Ikran, Jessica. Let's talk about meaningful engagement. What does that mean? If you look at the traditional role of a manager, that's typical planning, organizing, staffing, and directing and control. This is, and up to today, is still very much the role of a manager. Now, one of the things that, at least over the last 10 years, is becoming more obvious, and it is something linked very much with career conversation and showing care to employee is this thing about showing care for the employee. And that has become in fact, that is probably the cornerstone of career conversation. It's about showing care to the employee, which means I care for you, not just as long as you contribute, but I care for you as a person. Why? If you look from a behavior, a habit building perspective, the people in the workforce today were literally brought up in a good times, which means they are cared for, things are done for them. They didn't have to push very hard to get things. That is how, and care has always been about they are protected and all, right? So we call them strawberry and all. But for them, they interpret that as care. And when they come to the workplace, part of what they expect from manager is the manager must show care to me. There's this thing called, and this was interesting, psychological contract was a concept that started in the 70s. It was started in the 70s, and the psychological contract talks about unwritten set of expectation of the employment relationship. So you do have employment contract, which is the formal one, and employment contract focus on transactional matters in terms of what needs to be done, jobs, KPIs, follow rules and all. What time do you come to work, what time you finish. So that is the transactional part. The psychological contract is the expectation. That means, what is my expectation to the manager and what's the manager's expectation to me? Most of the time, the managers will tell the employee their expectation. Because majority of us are from Malaysia, and you start to realize in the Malaysian culture, generally people dare not speak up or share their opinion with their bosses, either from a perspective of there's no psychological safety, or purely in the sense that you're my boss, I shouldn't be telling you what I want. And that is very culturally ingrained. But what we are saying is every employee do have a expectation that they want in the workplace. And it is beyond just doing the work. So showing care for employees is a role a manager needs to put within them as an expected thing. So this is something that I really want to highlight because it is about showing care. And that's where, as we go into this part, there are shifts in the mindset of the manager that needs to change. And this is one of the foundational mindset models that I work with leaders. First, as a shift from ownership to stewardship. So in the past, if I'm a manager and you're my staff, I generally see that you are mine. And therefore, it explains when a person leaves, the manager feels betrayed because how can you leave me? So let me just see a show of hands. Have you all come across managers who gets upset with the staff because they left them? Yes or no? Thank you very much for those who responded. Elaine, I think for Elaine and Jessica, if you have not seen this, perhaps it's a situation that your company culture is one where managers have no problem with staff coming and leaving. Let me share with you first the ownership and stewardship. With ownership, you belong to me. With stewardship, you are parked under me and I am responsible to develop you, but I don't own you, which means when you go, I've done my job. This is very critical because I've seen managers who the staff love them, but maybe 3 years later, the staff wants to come back. They are not willing to accept them because in the first place, they felt the staff betrayed them. The irony is this, when your staff comes back to you, they actually come back with a competitor's knowledge. So technically, they become more valuable, but because we see as ownership, that's where things goes wrong. So one of the mindset shifts managers have to make is to move to stewardship. That means you are with me for a short period of time. While you are here, my job is to groom you. So once you move from ownership to stewardship, then it happens the next, which is the shift from delegating tasks to creating opportunities. So now it's instead of saying, you need to do this or you need to get this done, I want to come from a perspective of finding out tasks which you want or you find beneficial and I can provide you that task. So for example, if you, let's say you enjoy, you are about procurement, you enjoy going researching and finding out who are the vendors and doing all those kind of jobs, right? So if I know that's what you want and I need to get quotes, I can go to you and say, hey, I got this particular job. Do you want to do it based on what you shared with me? Then what happens is I am now creating an opportunity for my employee instead of my employee saying, I can't take this and do it. So while the task is still the same, the way it's being presented shifts the dynamic from being delegated to creating an opportunity for the staff. So that's the second shift. Now, the third shift is from department focus to organization focus. So a manager has now to realize that, hey, I am part of the organization. And therefore, my focus, while yes, my KPIs are attached to my department, I am part of a larger organization. So the managers needs to really see that I am part of the organization, not just part of the department. And I'll share you why this comes in very crucial, very critically. And the last one, shift from developing employees for the organization to mutual benefits. When we talk about career conversation, managers needs to look at it as a mutual benefit, which means I need to do something so my staff gains and I also gain. Now, here we talk not just financial benefits. We actually talk a lot in terms of the other non-financial benefits, right? Especially the part of opportunities. Are we okay with the mindset thing? Anything to clarify? Because this is where the paradigm has to shift before we go into career conversation.
Hi, Isaac, Eileen here.
Hi, Eileen.
So how about employee who are a bit of a generation difference? So I have managers who are a bit younger generation, and
Alright.
they believe that individual have to, fight for your own right. Individual has to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And so they don't expect the employee, to be like asking them how to drive their career and all that, but they want the employee to take the lead. So in the way, sometimes the manager is very they use a very different style. So they don't dictate, but then the employee becomes so uncomfortable and think that the manager don't care about them.
Exactly. Thank you for bringing up that. So now your situation is a role reversal. The younger manager is becoming like what I'm talking about, have the ownership on the staff, but the staff doesn't know what to do. Is that what you're saying?
The manager don't think that they need to own the career path of the employee. So they do have career conversation. They give opportunity to the employee, but the employee just feel that not comfortable with that, and sometimes they just expect that I'm in the company for 5 years. Why isn't that a move for me? But
Right.
the manager will always expect the employee to be doing something, but the employee expect the manager to be just promoting her along that line. Yeah.
Okay. Can I check with you so you're saying in terms of the age, the employee is age-wise, the employee is more senior than the manager. Is that correct?
No, I think they are around the same age. Maybe the manager is just slightly 1 or 2 years older than her, which means also the employee is a bit young, but she is a bit young, but not wanting to drive her own career.
Right. Okay.
And the manager is saying that you need to do something to show me, why should I promote you, why should I upgrade you, why should I give you opportunity. So I think it's a bit of a generation problem, even though they are pretty close age.
It could be generation, it could also be the exposure and upbringing. So let me share with you in terms of this. There's a statement that I always say with leaders: don't know doesn't mean don't have. So you do have some people who are pretty contented with life. And for them is, I just come to work because I just need to do something, because I grew up being told you work, if you do the things right, you will progress. Some people grew up with that programming. Based on your story, your manager comes very much from a very approach of career conversation, which I think is the right approach of putting ownership. What can happen is two things. You could get the employee a mentor within the organization, someone else, because perhaps no one have actually sat down with the employee to talk about what's possible for her. In this situation, I will focus more with the employees, perhaps getting a mentor, either internally or externally, to be able to talk about her, about what we say, what's life to her about. So it doesn't have to be specifically, I want to climb up the ladder, but it has to be a lot more about exploring possibilities. So it's creating what we call the possibility question. This is a very common issue. People who comes across very contented, people who comes across like, I will just do whatever you tell me. And we do have a lot of people like that. I find this a lot more in Asia. Managers have to do a lot more in comparison to the West, because in Asia, we are told to always think of others first. We are always told focus is always on others. So a lot of us grew up with that kind of mentality. And therefore, to think about our career ambition becomes counterculture. So this is something that is very real, and therefore a manager has to take a step more. So this whole idea of learning to plan for myself and all, while it is very much in the medias and all, it is not something we do naturally. It's something that either we are exposed to it or we have friends who are with that kind of mindset. The reason why we spend a fair bit of time looking through all those, what we call the big why, is because Career conversation very much focuses on the mindset of the manager. The manager has to look at the staff as, I don't own this guy is the property of the organization. In a way, you can say it's the property of the organization. When the guy is with me, my job is to be able to groom him up for the organization. So it's like an adoption. The person comes to me, I groom him up and then pass back. So that's stewardship. So that's something that managers need to have a look at. So career conversation is really a conversation to understand and this is what truly matters to your employees and assess their contribution to your team. Now, let me share further. Today, people don't come to the work just purely for money because they can get that in any organization. The question is, what matters to them? Is it based on the ERG, right? Is it a essential thing, or is it a relatedness thing, or is it a growth? What matters to them? You will find some employees who are so much at the growth level that they are not focused on the results. They are only focused on, oh, I'm doing new things, I'm growing. So some employees are like that. Unfortunately, some managers see that as a non-performer. Here's the irony. If you look at how like HR do job gradings in terms of high potential, high performance, right? High potential show ambitiousness, but may not necessarily be a high performer. And therefore, part of the job of the manager is to work with them to drive performance. You also have people who are just high performance but not high potential. They just do whatever is given. They are not interested in anything extra. And we need to recognize these are all part and parcel of them. So a career conversation is a first and most critical conversation a manager needs to have with the staff to understand the staff. What do they want? What do they want in your organization? Now, the point here is a conversation that's meaningful, honest, and explores ways to work mutually beneficial. What do I mean by mutually beneficial? So one of the things when we do career conversation is to even find out how long the staff is going to be with you. So example, I was working with another leader. The staff was in production. The staff wants to go to quality. And what happens is he wants to go to quality, but he's currently in production. So what happens was the honest conversation happened is the manager said, okay, now that I know that you want to go quality, let's do this. Over the next 1 year, I need you to be able to perform for me so that it's easier for me to promote you or to the department. Because obviously, if I were to request or transfer for you that, people could be saying, why are you doing that? Could the staff not be performing? So a very honest conversation will be, okay, fine, you are interested in the quality, but I need you to, at least for this year, for your next KPI, I need you to be able to hit certain things. If you hit certain things, it makes it easy for me to promote you to the next department. So that is the kind of conversation that you can have with the staff. Instead of the older method of, you trying to dissuade the staff of going to quality side because you want him to be with you. One of the challenge with leaders in the workplace is they do not want to let go the staff because the staff is a performer, and letting them go means as a manager, I need to work harder. So that is one challenges why managers are reluctant to grow the staff beyond their department, because if I grow you beyond my department, you will leave. And if you leave, I have to groom someone else. Once again, as managers, we need to ask, what are we doing? I was watching a movie called Moneyball, right? If you have not watched that movie, I would recommend that you watch. And there was this one very interesting statement. And this statement can be quite controversial, but I thought it puts things in perspective. You shouldn't be buying players. You should be buying wins. In our context, we don't talk about wanting to own the talent. We talk about how do we get the skills out of them. So that is what we need to be doing. And that's what we need to do when we have a conversation with them. As managers, we want to talk about, okay, how can I leverage the employee's talent now to gain what I need? And therefore, you look at the last statement, a conversation that establishes trust. This is very important. A lot of us talk about trust in organization. And all of us would probably agree that trust is a critical ingredient for productivity in the workplace. The reason trust don't happen all the time because staff is always wondering, is the manager trying to do more for the organization than for them? Now, if you as a manager can have a honest conversation with your staff and say, okay, if you do this for organization, I'll find ways to do something for you, sort of a bartering, the trust actually increases because you are being very honest with the staff. Makes sense, but how to help them move past that? Trust. Not really. I always encourage my staff to earn as much experience and value, and it's not only for the company, it's also value added for them. Sandy, I think that's a great thing. And this is where, remember I was talking about buying toy for the child versus the child paying the money into it. A career conversation, in a way, gets the employee to tell us what they want. The biggest challenge is this, and I actually, my heart goes out to a lot of managers. We want to do the best for our people, and because we observe, we more or less know what they want. Now, the problem is this, because they have not thought about what they want, when we give it to them, they do not appreciate it as much as if they actually put thought into it, right? So in a way, a career conversation stages the whole process of getting them to tell us, what do you want? So in my mind, I have an idea what you want, but I need to hear it from you. Now, once you tell me and I give it to you, the partnership becomes strong. But if they don't tell me and I give it to them, they will perceive as, oh, boss insisting me to do it. Does that make sense, Sandy?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
very true.
So
Yes.
in a career conversation, right? So I know as managers, many of us really do our best to understand our employees, which is good. But it's a handshake thing. We need to let them also do their part. And this is where I find from neuroscience, right? It's very critical that they spend time thinking about it. If they have not spent time thinking about it, the level of appreciation of what you give them goes down. So in a career conversation, one of the most difficult thing a manager needs to do is quieten and let the staff talk. Why? Because a lot of managers are so result driven. You just want to push things fast. And therefore, when the staff doesn't say anything, we feel compelled to chip in or throw in ideas. And all they will say, yeah. The biggest problem from a brain perspective, them saying yeah doesn't get etched into their mind that this is what I want. All they know is this is what my boss tells me. And therefore, when they, in their mind, this is what my boss tells me, the appreciation for it drops, that's one. Now, when the appreciation drops, the commitment does also drops. So it's a situation about making them say it. The benefit of it is this, and it starts with all about the employee. Really, career conversation demonstrate genuine care for the employee. So, for example, if I meet an employer, I say, hey, I would like to do a career conversation with you because I really want to know what matters to you. And my role as your manager is to be able to see how I'm able to develop you in those areas while you are with me. And I will always stress the statement while you are with me because it gives the employee a breathing space to know that I don't expect the employee to be with me all the time. All right? And that's part of the whole psychological thing. So demonstrate genuine care. Some people are afraid of doing genuine care because they will assume genuine care means the staff do whatever they want. No, that's not. Genuine care here is as long as what's within my power. That's why we talk about genuine care because they are not your children. So that's one. The next benefit about career conversation, place the responsibility of your direct reports career in their hands. So this is similar to what you shared just now or what Elaine shared in the sense that as managers, our job is to facilitate their growth. The career conversation, which is really me understanding you, but for employees who don't know what they want, that's where the manager, if they have the skill or they're interested, really sits down with the staff and have what we call coffee conversation and just talk about, hey, what are something when you were growing up, right? What are some of the things that you wanted to do? A very famous question, if today you don't need to work for money, what kind of work would you like to do? Right? So those are the things that's really the conversation you need to have with your employees to get them to start to realize, oh yeah, actually this is what I want. So that conversation that conversation doesn't happen one time. It needs to go on and on. Because for employees who have never really spent time knowing where they want to go, I can tell you, just trying to think of that, it's very, very tiring for them. So this is where, and that's why I said, don't know doesn't mean don't have. They do have it. It's just that they have not made the connection that they can get that while in your organization. So always make it their responsibility. So let me give you a typical example. A staff say, I want to earn more, right? They always say money not enough. I mean, everybody says that. So the staff who says money not enough. As a manager, if I have the opportunity, I'll say, okay, why don't you take on a bit more workload and I'm able to compensate that. You will have somebody who said, never mind. Because they were not really genuine about it, but and by them saying no, you actually realize that they didn't really mean it. Now, this is where we say place responsibility on that. I know some managers, because they hear the staff say that they want extra money, the manager themselves automatically craft carve out additional role for that staff to justify additional pay. Now, when you do that, your staff may actually be upset with you, because he will say, you never asked me, that's one. Secondly, he will say, no, I was just talking. So once again, always place the responsibility on them. And that basically says how fast or how far they want to go depends on them. Not all employees want to go vertical. Now, the benefit of this is it creates an ownership mindset. Now, ownership mindset means what? The staff, whether they want to go far or fast, is really up to them. So you will have a staff who's super ambitious, super wants to climb up, right? Give them the more demanding project because they will deliver to you, for you, because they are ambitious. Some staff are just comfortable. And you will see this in terms of at a different generation. I mean, for a staff who is already a grandparent, they are not interested of climbing up the career ladder. What they want is to be able to keep themselves occupied, at the end of the day, go home and spend time with their grandchildren. That is their purpose, right? So if you try that to entice them and say, oh, if you do this, then maybe we can consider you for the next promotion, they may not even be interested. So when we say create an ownership mindset, at the end of the day, you want to have a talk with the staff. So for example, you want to say, hey, there's a promotion coming up. I'm considering you. I'm not promising, but I'm considering you. Is this something that you want to work towards? If you want, let me know. But I'm talking to a few people, but I'm asking you because you have been with me for a while. Are you interested in it? And let them make the decision. We cannot assume just because the fellow is there many years, he wants to it. True story. I was working with a client. And with this particular client situation, what happened was the staff was actually the nephew or niece of the owner. And the owner wanted him to be promoted. I'm sorry, not owner, the senior leader. So the senior leader talked to him and said, can you help him promote him? So the leader actually told the senior leader, I don't think he's ready because there are certain things need. And so the conversation went back. And eventually he told the senior leader and said, okay, I don't agree, but if you want, I will promote him. Obviously, the senior leader was upset, went away. So what he did was he actually approached the staff and sat down the staff and told him the actual scenario. So and so says that, wants me to develop you to move up promotion. And you know what? The staff actually said he doesn't want. The staff actually said he's happy where he is. And I thought that's a very good example to say, let's not assume what our staff want. We should have a conversation and ask them, because what staff say sometimes is just out of fun. Sometimes they just not because people like to compare, right? If everybody says extra money, obviously the staff is not going to say I'm happy. He will also say I need extra money because it's part of the herd mentality. But this is where they need to take ownership. And your role as the leader, as the manager, is to make sure that at the end of the day, if they are not happy, then the question is, I already asked you, you said one. And that's very important. Now, counter culture. In the Asian context, or at least Malaysia and Singapore side, we always have this lovers conversation. If you love me, you know what I want. That is a very dangerous mindset to bring to the workplace, which means make it very clear to the staff, if you say you don't want, I will take your word at it. It may not start that way for everybody, but once your staff gets to understand your style, that becomes very, very important. Next one, greater level of trust. Now, if there's openness, there's genuine care, there is this ownership, which means now I'm transparent to you. I'll tell you what's within my power, what's not. Then the trust between you and your staff increase. That's where it creates a psychological safety. That's where the psychological contract comes in. And that's where your staff can actually tell you more stuff like, hey, I'm actually quite keen for the other department. And this is my story. So I started off in the production department, what we call advanced process department. And because I was working closely with R&D, and my boss is pretty open. For him, I find it very comfortable to talk to him. So I think after third year, I asked, can I go the other side? And I know the head for the R&D team because we work together very closely on projects. And so therefore, it's easy for me to talk to my boss and say, can I interested? In fact, my boss even said, would you like me to talk to him about you moving? So my point is this, when there is trust with you and your employees, they will share what do they want to do, or even they will share with you opportunities. So this happened to me. I currently have a consultant who is exploring another opportunity. And up to today, he hasn't got an opportunity yet, but he actually shared with me that I said, I'm actually keen to explore that. And for me, it's like, great, go ahead. What do you need? Do you need me to be a referee for you? So those are the kind of conversations that builds trust with your employee. And guess what? This week, I needed his help to do something, and he's still willing to do it for me. It's not a situation that, oh, he's leaving me kind of thing. So trust. Very, very critical. And the last part, the benefit of it is really enables you as the manager to plan your resources. And this one is where if you know your staff is going to be for you for 3 years, maximize his capability within that 3 years. Not a situation, yeah, you're only going to be here for 3 years. It's always about, okay, you're going to be here for 3 years. While you are with me, right, what are skills I can develop for you? So this way in a career conversation, they will tell you what are their ambitions, what are their goals, what are the things they want to achieve. And let's say, for example, we talk about running business. Obviously, they need skills in terms of finance, skills in terms of people management, skills in terms of how do they structure their business. Those are different skills. So you want to be able to say to the person, okay, if you are looking about 3 to 5 years, what are possible skills you want to gain during that period? So this is where, as manager, you can start planning. And if they say 3 to 5 years, by the second year, you can start, while engaging them and finding out whether they are still wanting that skill, you can start looking out for other people who wants to join you. So the gap or the shock of your employee leaving goes down. Now let's go into the how. Okay, Isaac, you have been telling me I need to partner my employee. I need to be able to mutual benefit. So what does that mean? This diagram shows you what I mean. So my goal is the manager, their goal is that one, right? So mutual goal will be benefits. This is the area where you need people to do this project or this task or these things, and they also want it. So this is mutual goal, and this is where what we call areas of opportunity, which means you present those projects, you present those activities as you said you want to develop this. I have this project. Are you interested in it? So why? Because you're in your conversation, you made it very clear that this project will contribute to them from a skills perspective. Now that is the mutual goal. Their goal. Now these will be things that they want that doesn't benefit you and your department. So as a manager, you realize, okay, that's what they want, but it doesn't benefit what I need them to do. So I use that in terms of rewards. And so let's say, for example, your staff wants you to fund their training. Let's say he wants to go for baking class. Baking class doesn't fit into what you're doing. So you want to be able to use that and say, okay, but I need you to do certain things. So there's a bit of what we call trade-off. Once again, mutual benefit, you become very clear and say, okay, you want this but I need you to do this. So in the area of mutual goal, it's obvious, both of you win. In the area where it's just their goal, you want to do some trade-off. Now, where do you do the trade-off? You look under my goal. So these are things that you need them to do, but it's not part of the conversation. That means during the conversation with them, they didn't show interest in what needs to be done. So let's say, for example, filing. They are not interested in doing filing, but you do need them to do filing. So you want to be able to use this as a trade-off. You help me with this, then I'll be able to let you go for this kind of programs. So we look in terms of mutual goals plus trade-offs. One of the skills that you need to pick up as managers is to break down the goals into skills. So for example, a person who wants to write proposal, right? You think about proposal, part of the skill is how do they get the data? Part of the skill is using Microsoft PowerPoint. Part of the skills is using Excel to tabulate the results. So you look from a skills perspective, there are a number of skills that you want them to do. Presenting a proposal may not be a skill that they want because that's presentation skill. But what they want to do is the skill of writing a proposal. So what you want to do as manager is to really break down their goals. Now, these are the common skills that is in most organizations, functional technical skills. So that, for example, is whatever they're doing. So they're in finance, that's finance skill. If it is engineering, then it's technical engineering skills. So let's say the fellow wants to open a mechanic workshop. So if he's functional skill, he wants to know, so yes, those are the skills he's looking for, right? But hey, if you're doing business, you also need people skills, which means in the workplace, you want to be able to talk to them and say, hey, you need to manage people. So part of it, you need to be able to talk to the senior leaders. So instead of you always presenting to senior leaders, now you are creating an opportunity for them to do presentation to the senior leaders. So you see how we are positioning all this as an opportunity for them to carry out where the conversation happens. Next, leadership skill. You're going to lead people, you need to do, right? So then you can talk about promotion, you can talk about, leading a team and why that is going to benefit. So you want to look at all this from a skills perspective. Technology. So for example, you're using an SAP system or you're using a HR 2000 system, you want them to pick it up. If it's related to the skill, for example, you need to use a HRM software or a CRM software. Then this is where you get them to be involved as an administrator or even to the person who is running it or teaching the people how to use the system. So this is where we talk technological skill. Finally, organizational skill. So organizational skill will be things like how do I structure my organization, mission, vision, core values, rewards. How do we do a com and ban, right? So those are the organizational skill. How to use reward system, right? And inside the book Drive, it does talk about when to use reward, when not to use reward, as well as organizational skill in terms of performance appraisal. Somebody mentioned about having a form and all. So those are organizational skill in terms of how do I run an organization. These are the 5 common skills that is available in most organizations and that will help anyone, anywhere. Okay, so let me pause here for a while and open up for questions.
Hi, Isaac, Eileen.
Hi, Eileen.
So I think the conversation will be a bit more tricky when it's more towards lateral move rather than vertical. So when you look at lateral, because not just lateral move, but enhancing and upgrading.
All right.
So we do have employees who are sometimes skeptical when managers want to train them for further upgrading. They feel, I think the part where the conversation goes like, you are putting me on more courses because you are going to add more tasks to me, but you're not giving me any rewards. So they always, I think there's no trust in that kind of conversation that we do always get. So it's a little bit difficult when it's lateral or just enhancing skills. So if the employee do not feel it's enhancing to them, they will just feel that it's just additional tasks added.
Fair enough. And Ilya, I think that goes back to the whole conversation about manager sees the potential and capability in that, and the manager initiate that conversation. Because to the manager, if you take on this, you'll be better, it's easier then your value goes up. So the manager sees that. But the staff doesn't see it that way, right? So I think, do you have a mentorship program in your organization?
We do have, but it's not that much practice.
All right. So and I find sorry, you're saying?
I think it can be helpful, depending, I think, on some employees. Some may just see that, you're putting another person in to monitor my work.
I agree.
I think it's the attitude of some employee has that kind of mentality.
Especially you're in manufacturing, right?
No, not really, but more towards the healthcare arena. So slightly different dynamic of people that we are talking to, more the clinical people.
Okay. So those are very technical people, right? Okay.
Specialties.
So one of the things that I agree with you, I think the challenge is gaining the trust by getting them to recognize what's needed. This is where additional things that we can help them is, painting the picture beyond just rational conversation. That's one. Secondly, it's also about the reality about this organization. There is no more career path in terms of, say, a specialist track, or at least specialist track is this path. If you want to stay there, I can do this, but cannot go further than them. So that's where we say the honest conversation comes in. Now, they may not be happy with it, but I think what they will appreciate is the transparency of the conversation. That's one. The other thing I find is, and this one is a bit subjective, is always make sure the manager always needs to have 2 or 3 candidates to be considered and not just that one person. When you do just that one person, then as a manager, you will feel the need to coerce the person to doing it. But if you have 2 or 3 candidates, there is a situation that I'm looking at a few of you, but I'm keen to send you. Are you interested? Do you think that will work, Elaine?
Yeah, I think that's basically what happened, but then one of the employees took it quite negatively. I think you well said about that, when you are a specialist, you are limited in terms of your career vertically. So and there's other opportunity that the managers try to enhance and upgrade the person's skill, but it has been taken on as a negatively by the employee. So I think the biggest problem was the trust within that relationship. So the mentee,
sorry,
that comes into the picture.
Okay.
To help.
Fair enough. Yes, I think the other thing about a situation like that is, and this is something is very sensitive, but it's something that I will share because I do believe it's beneficial. If the manager really, and sometimes the person is not willing to move, and to the manager, it becomes a block, right? Now, this is where it's a bit sensitive, but I think it's worthwhile experimenting. For the manager to have a conversation is, if there's somewhere else that could get you move on, are you open to the idea? So the whole idea is no more about employees for life, or at least employee in the organization. Now, the benefit to the manager is this: if this guy moves out of the organization, I have another headcount that I can bring in, who is more open to moving up. So in this sense, it's a bit out of the box thinking. It's about getting managers to say that, okay, if this person doesn't want to move, wants to stay there, but it's not contributing to the manager's agenda, then maybe the manager might want to even connect with people outside the organization. And it's sensitive because sometimes HR say we want to keep them, right? To basically say, okay, I know people in somewhere else. Are you open to moving out or moving somewhere else? Once again, the conversation may be perceived as you want to get me out of organization. And I think a lot of that happens because the manager's conversation with the staff tends to be only work, very transactional. The manager has not built enough relationship. Generally in Asia, we are highly relational, and relational people values that conversation. My suggestion is perhaps the manager wants to have a bit more coffee time with the staff and talk non-work related. Invest in the relationship. And then when they talk about this, it becomes less fiery. Thanks for that, Elaine. So what do we do for us to move forward? Easy. First is get to know them, which means first conversation, don't talk about what job you want to give them. First conversation is, I would like to know you more. I would like to know what your aspiration. I would like to know what are your dreams, what are your goals, what are the skills that you're looking for. Those are the type of questions you want to be looking at. Second, create a skills matrix for them. I'll show you after this. Third, regular feedback. So if you guys have been hearing a lot of the last couple of years where they are talking like Adobe has done away with performance appraisal. The reason they do away with performance appraisal because they do a lot of constant feedback. So this is why we say regular feedback you want to be doing. Career conversation, how often you do? My suggestion, half yearly, half quarterly or half yearly, you have this conversation. And the whole idea is to see whether they are still wanting the same goal or whether their goal has changed. Now, this is very important because what happens is sometimes I think this is what I want. As I do it, I realize I don't want. So I had a consultant who was interested to learn how to sell. And I was working with him, but halfway through, and after about 2 months, right, he realized he doesn't like the sales. So he said, Isaac, I don't want this. Let me do something else. So my point is, sometimes employees have an idea of what they want, but it may not be exactly what they want. So that's the experimentation process you need to go with them. And finally, once you know that, you want to update. So let me give you a simple template of what I talk about. So you want to have something like this, right? Where you have the name, the start of the information. You want to have career aspiration. Now, a career conversation is meant to be informal, but you do need to document this for your references because along the way, things may change, right? So you want to meet the staff, you want to talk about what's their career aspiration. And always, my recommendation is always bring down to a skill set level. What are the skills they're looking at? If they want to learn to become a better people manager, what are the skills do they need? So that's the skills, and we talk about what do they currently possess and what do they desire. Now, what do they desire becomes your area of opportunity for you to work with them. Now, how are they progressing? This is so as manager now you're spending more time identifying what is it that they want, what do they need to do, right? So as what's next. So for example, the staff says he wants to be for you 3 years. You can actually indicate here so that as you are looking at this, you can say, okay, roughly this, and therefore in your next career conversation, you can actually just check in and say, is the status the same or the status have changed? So you want to be able to document something for your use. This is not meant to be an official documentation, but it's important for you to know because you have a number of stuff. Here are some of the typical questions I like to use when I do career conversation. What is your aspiration? If there's something you can do and don't get bored, what would it be? What makes you most happy at work? What are some of your short-term goals? What are skills you are most interested to develop? What areas do you need more support? How do you feel about your key strength, right? What do you feel the key areas of development? What are the typical ones? What steps and action you're willing to take in the next 12 months? What would you like to do as a next assignment? So once again, you want to talk them. Obviously, you want to share with them what is available. So if this is my department, so for example, I have a number of projects, I can actually sit down with them and say, these are the projects I'm having. Are there any particular one that you think you want to get involved in? This happens very much in the consulting industry. where we come with projects and then we talk to different team members and say who wants to be part of it. And I find this method to be very, very effective, because once they take it, it becomes a sense of ownership. You say, okay, so you want to do this, these are the criteria for this project. Are you keen? You're not keen. So that kind of conversation needs to happen often. Right, we ran out of time, so I won't go into the next part, but up to this point, what questions do you have for me with regards to career conversation? All right, so going back to that last question about a staff who doesn't want to do. So firstly, I would say if you're a manager, build a relationship with the staff beyond just the current work. As manager, what we are doing is we want to size up what excites them. You want to do that. And then you need to always reflect to the staff and say, hey, okay, I want you to go back and think about it. What are some things you want to be involved in? So these are the type of conversation you need to give them. Some of them will say, boss, anything can. Now, for those type of conversation, fine. What you want to do is you want to observe them, because for some staff, they are really very, very happy. For them, they are all about relationship. Now, for a staff who is very relationship driven, then your investment you need to be is building relationship with them. All right. Now, when you do this, obviously people will talk, but it benefits you, it benefits the staff. For staff, as you know, I shared to Elaine, for staff who wants to move up, part of the conversation is, if there's another role somewhere else outside this organization, are you open to that? And that actually has two benefits. One, it benefits the staff because perhaps they can get better pay as well as progress in where they want, or as well as a manager, you now get to bring someone else in to be able to continue with your journey of what you need to do. All right. I have ended what we are sharing. Can I get your feedback in terms of, is there anything else that will be that you need to know in terms of career conversation?
I have one question.
Yes.
So, is this also applicable for like our blue-collar workers?
Blue-collar workers?
Yeah, so as in most of the time, then they'll be doing very physical work, and you can't really assess them like, oh, what else you...
Are they local or foreign?
I mean, I'm in Singapore, so our blue collars are foreigners.
The thing with foreigner is this: they come with what we call a foreign mindset. So for them, their focus is a lot about money. So basically, for them, it's about job enlargement. So if you are opportunities for them to give them more, is that if you ask them what do they want, the fact that they are in Singapore working is really about to be able to generate the income. So that is a common conversation that you can have with the blue collar. Does that answer?
Yes.
Yeah. So the blue collar is a bit more straightforward.
Exact. Meaning to say, if let's say a manager wanted to have a career conversation with the employee,
all right.
So manager needs to prompt the employee in advance, saying that okay, asking them that okay, we were having a career conversation like next week, so let's plan what you want to do in your career before having the proper career conversation, so
yes,
know what
your
needs, career aspirations and stuff like that. Is that?
Yes. Two things you need to do. Firstly, tell them in advance. Now, some managers like to give them crafted questions because some employees don't know how to start, right? So what you can do is like the question I shared with you just now, you can actually send it. Here are some questions which I thought that would be helpful to you in thinking through what's your next step. So you can share the question. Now, a manager also must assure the staff that, this is just to understand. It doesn't mean if you say means must be done. So a lot of creating that psychological safety for the staff to express and not feel that whatever they say will be used against them. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So now the thing is this, please don't do it via email. Go and have a face-to-face talk to the staff, career conversation. Or either, if they are too far, make a phone call. If it is across borders, then you want to do a teleconferencing. Because career conversation is personal, you do need to have a bit of that personal touch.
Okay.
All right. Cool.
So meaning to say, currently we are not able to, is it okay if we do it virtually, for example, like, like...
You mean the career conversation done virtually, is it?
Yeah.
Fine. Perfectly fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's perfectly fine. Just that once again, if it is one of the things about career conversation, you want to start very much with the staff. So don't straight away start, hey, how are you? All right, let's do the career conversation. No, you want to do it and say, hey, how's everything? Recently, you're doing this project, you want to talk about it. So do a bit of small talk, small chat, ease them into the whole process. That is the how you start actually determines the quality of the conversation also.
Okay.
Right? And also when you are starting off, don't straight away give a yes, no answer, or at least if there are certain things you cannot promise, say, okay, think about it, or certain things, if you're going to say no, you need to tell them what is possible. If they want certain thing and you say, for example, they want something from another department, you say, okay, I can't promise you anything, I can speak to so and so first, so you can do that conversation.
Okay.
Now, for a manager who requires more time to think through, you can actually break it into 2 steps process, which means first conversation is just to understand your needs. And then say, okay, hey, thank you very much. Tell you what, let me go, let me some time to process what you shared, and then let's meet again 2 days from now. Because some managers are not very good at thinking on the spot. So for those managers who has challenged thinking on the spot, you want to make it clear that it's a 2-step process. I want to get to know what your thoughts and all. Give me some time and I will come back with the answer for you. So that's also possible. Any other questions? Anyone else? Any other questions? Or anybody open to just sharing with me how do you find the session today so far? That would be very helpful.
Yeah, I think overall you cover everything, which what need to what support that we require before we are having a conversation with the employee, and what is the key component during the conversation. For example, like what are the key topic that we supposed to discuss during the career conversation. And on top of that, it's not only about career conversations, it's about the engagement with the employee itself.
Yes.
So that you will be able to create the bonding with the employee, so you will get more information from the employee and get to know your employee better, in a sense, rather than having information about the employee, so that you will be able to plan ahead what need to be done for your department or your organizations. Yeah.
Thanks, Hasrina. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining this session. If you do have any other questions, please email it to me.